Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Missing Link in Your Healing. This is the podcast where we shine a light on the parts that may not be obvious to you or that you might not even know to help yourself heal. We take a very holistic approach, incorporating body, mind, spirit, energy. We focus on physical health, but the integration of all of them to enable us to become our own healers from the inside out. We're all different, so take what you need and what resonates and share this if what you hear could be helpful for others. We did an episode on the pancreas a few episodes back, and it was really mind-blowing for me, who's currently got pancreatic issues, and we've had such extraordinary feedback about it. So we then recorded an episode on the thyroid, as you probably would have listened to, and now we're doing one on the heart. So Loretta, I'm going to hand over to you and give us a holistic perspective on the heart as an organ, heart disease. It's been astoundingly insightful and holistic, everything you bring. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Antoinette. So we are going to talk about the heart today, and why this is important, amongst other reasons, is that heart disease is the biggest killer worldwide. So according to the stats that I got off ChatGPT the other day, there are 17.9 million people die of heart disease every year, and it's projected that by 2050, that figure is going to be 35.6 million. That's quite a lot, right? And those are people who die. Those are not just people who have heart disease. So when we talk about cardiovascular disease, it's not just the heart. We're talking about primarily things like heart attacks and strokes. Those are the causes of death. But then there are all the other factors that are associated with it, like, cholesterol plaques and high blood pressure and things like that. So I don't want to go too much into the sort of medical kind of conditions, because most of us, we can access that information really easily, and we know what heart disease is, I'd like to think. I want to talk today more about the parts of the heart that we maybe don't know about. So in our language, the heart is littered in our language. We have heartache, we have heartbreak, and like you can feel it in your heart, or my heart goes out to you, right? There's a lot of symbolism in the language that we use around our heart, because the heart was considered by the ancients to be the seat of the spirit. And in fact, in Chinese medicine, as I said, I think I spoke about this on the thyroid episode, in Chinese medicine, the heart is the seat of the Shen, which actually is the spirit. So that language has come from this perception that we have that the heart is so much more than just that physical organ in your chest that's the pump. And we think of our hearts as pumps, but it is much, much more than that. So I'm hoping that today I'm going to elucidate that for you. So the first area energetically that we're going to talk about is the heart chakra. So as I explained in the thyroid episode, your chakras are like wheels of energy. There's 7 primary ones on the body, and the chakras connect the body with all the layers of the energy body and the mind and the spirit, right? And so you have the front part of the chakra and you have the back part of the chakra. So energetically, your heart chakra is incredibly important because it's the 4th chakra in the body, and it links the bottom 3, which are associated more with our physical expression, to the top 3 that are associated more with our mental, emotional, and spiritual expression. So the heart is a conduit energetically between our physical nature and our spiritual nature. So we can look at that as it's the conduit between our egoic nature, our reality, and our more intangible spiritual nature within ourselves. It's also the conduit between us, that represents the earth element, and heaven, whatever you think of as heaven. So the heart is really important energetically. So to me, it's no surprise that 17.9 million people die a year of heart disease. First of all, from a physical point of view, because a lot of factors around our physical health affects our heart. So how much we exercise, what we eat, all of those things, how much we sleep, it all affects our heart. And so a lot of heart disease is preventable, in inverted commas, through lifestyle, but not all. And the heart is the organ that expresses our joy. It's the organ that allows us energetically to engage fully with life. And there are all these rules that we grow up with and all the fears that we have that stop us from engaging fully. And so a lot of diseases like depression and anxiety that we don't think of as heart disease are associated energetically with the heart. So energetically, the heart chakra is the generator of our emotions, all our emotions, positive and negative. So the emotion that's most associated with the heart in Chinese medicine is joy, but there is such a thing as excessive joy. So there's a toxic version of joy, according to the Chinese, and then there's a healthy version of joy. The healthy version of joy is that version of joy that allows us to be who we really are and express ourselves fully in the world. The toxic version of joy is all those things we think we should be pursuing in order to be happy. All the comparing and competing we do. And these days with social media, it's very difficult to look at your feed and not in some way feel as if you're not measuring up. You know, you're not rich enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not smart enough, you're not whatever enough, right? Because we look at the brightest and smartest and most successful people. We see all of that on our feeds constantly. So the front of the chakra has got to do with the openness to life. It's got to do with how do we love widely and deeply. It's got to do with our appreciation of beauty. How do we appreciate beauty in the world? Do we look at a sunset and appreciate how magnificent it is? Or are we so busy trying to capture it on an image so that we can put the reel on social media so that people can see where we've been to see this beautiful sunset? All right. So, and I'm not knocking that. I've done that millions of times. I'm not knocking that. But, you know, like everything needs to be captured these days. Okay. So it's about beauty. Can we see the beauty and the uniqueness in ourselves? And can we see the beauty and the uniqueness in others? It also helps us to see the negative. And I'm using the word negative because that's the only language we have, or the shadow. So it's not only about seeing one-sided. It allows us to see all of it and appreciate and engage with all of it. And that's the key to that expression of the radiance and the pure joy that we can express when this heart chakra is open and in balance. When it's open, we can have compassion for ourselves. We can have a deep appreciation for ourselves. We can have a deep appreciation for others and compassion for others, as well as for the planet and everything around us. And as I said, we have this deep appreciation for beauty. When this part of the chakra, when the chakra is closed, the front part, then our relationships all become transactional. I do for you so that you can do back to me. It becomes like commerce. It becomes like economics, all right? Relationships become transactional about how well can you meet my needs, rather than how well can I meet my needs and how can we have a connected relationship with one another. So when this chakra is closed, we have what Dr. John DeMartini used to call alternating monologues. You know, you speak and then I speak. You know, when you're like waiting for the person to finish talking so that you can give them your point of view, you're not even remotely listening to what they have to say. And what happens is we speak like this, past each other. Alternating monologue was the word, the description that he uses. Instead of having dialogues where we're on an equal footing and we can actually we can disagree. We can agree to disagree, but we can still connect. So that is what the front part of the heart chakra helps to govern. The back part governs our power in the world. Now, interestingly, in Jin Shin Jyutsu, sorry, I'm just going to meld this together so that it's not so sectional. In Jin Shin Jyutsu, there's a safety energy lock on either side of the very center of your chest. It's called safety energy lock number 13. And safety energy lock number 13 means love thy enemies, the direct translation. And safety energy lock number 13, when it's open, it helps us. So first of all, enemy number 1 in your life is you. Just saying, it's not really all the people who've done all the things. So safety energy lock number 13, when it's open, it helps us to connect to ourselves. It helps us to appreciate ourselves, the good and the bad, the shiny and the shadow, right? All of it. And it's on either side of the center of the gland, which is where of the chest, which is where the thymus gland is located. So I'm going to speak about the thymus gland because it is the gland that governs the health of the heart chakra. So, but before I go there, let me just go to the back of the chakra. Since I'm speaking about safety energy locks, directly opposite safety energy lock number 13. So if 13 is here, imagine this position, but on the back. So it'll be halfway along your shoulder blade, between your shoulder blade and your spine. So in that muscle that runs between the spine and the margin of your shoulder blade, in the directly opposite this. And that safety energy lock, its literal translation is the outpouring of limitless life power. It's also known as the warehouse of abundance. So when safety energy lock number 13 is open and we can receive, then the more we can receive, the more we can pour this limitless life power out into the world, and the more full our warehouse of abundance is. And so the back of the chakra governs our power to act in the world. Can we pour out this limitless life power into the world, right? And so this is the energetic area from which we pursue what we want with integrity. And this is also where we view, when this is open, when the back of the chakra is open, we pursue what we want, our heart's desire. It's another figure of speech. This is my heart's desire. We pursue it with integrity, and we view the world and others in the world as allies. Now, not in a sort of unicorns and love and light way that everyone's on, but it's just that your obstacles become stepping stones. You still have challenges, but you have a worldview that the world is a safe place for you, and that actually people are there to help you. When it's block, we perceive the world as hostile, and we seek to control or dominate as a survival mechanism. So, we're either operating out of this space from love, in which case we're seeing it as safe and non-hostile, or we're operating from, I've got to survive, and in order for me to survive, you may not be able to survive. So this is where our ideas of there's not enough for everyone comes in. It's like a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's the survival of the fittest. It doesn't matter who you have to trample to get what you want. Or you can't actually, another one is you can't have what you want without having to trample on someone, so you don't pursue what you want. So when this chakra is closed, it's not just that we become hostile, domineering, and controlling. We can retreat from life. We can be incredibly kind. We can be incredibly compassionate, but we deny ourselves that which we would love, because we believe the only way I can have what my heart's desire is if I have to take it from someone else. And that also stops us from living fulfilled life, all right? Fulfilled lives. So it's vital. You can see why this energy center, and your heart chakra doesn't only govern the health of your heart, it governs the health of your heart, it governs the health of your lungs, and it governs the health of your thymus gland. So I want to talk about the thymus gland, because medically the thymus gland gets absolutely zero exposure, because the thymus gland is at its largest in childhood, in infancy. It's when it's at its biggest. And as we start going into puberty and getting older, it undergoes a process called involution. It shrinks. So when I was at university, basically we didn't learn a thing about the thymus gland, other than it's large in children, and it involutes as we get older. And the job of the thymus gland is to make and train blood cells called T lymphocytes. Now, your T lymphocytes are the lymphocytes that help you to recognize what is you and what is foreign. The T lymphocytes help to remove foreign invaders, viruses, bacteria, cancer cells, all right? Abnormal proteins in the bloodstream. The T cells remove them. So your thymus gland makes T cells, but it also trains them to recognize what is you and what is not you. So from this place in the center of the heart chakra, we learn what is me and what is not me, what is hostile to me and what is friendly to me in the body. So can you see how important this is? And so once the lymphocytes are trained, then they leave the thymus and they circulate through the whole body, and they differentiate so that they can recognize, as I said, they can help us fight things like infections. They can recognize abnormal cells. They can recognize cancer cells. Now, here's the problem. When the T cells are not trained effectively, they recognize your own body tissue as being problematic. And that's when we start getting autoimmune disease. So, I mean, that's another topic, but this is why this is so important. So your thymus gland literally trains your T lymphocytes to recognize friend from foe. So when you look at the safety energy lock number 13, it's love thy enemies. It's literally on either side of your thymus gland, which physiologically helps you to recognize who's your enemy and who isn't in your body. All right. And that's where it starts. So this chakra is so important because it allows us to feel like we're at home. Where are you most at home? Within yourself, and then obviously out in the world, right? So energetically, your thymus gland is the seat of vitality. In Jin Shin Jitsu, they call this area where safety energy lock number 13 is the fountain of youth. And safety energy lock number 13 has got to do with fertility. It's got to do with physical fertility. So this is the area energetically we work with women who are struggling with fertility, or men. But it's also got to do with the fertility of our creativity. How do we express ourselves in the world? What is your heart's desire? That's the first place. What is it? You find out what your heart's desire is through energetically this area. So your thymus gland bridges your emotional health, your immune health, your emotional well-being, and your spiritual development energetically. And physically, as I said, it teaches your immune system to recognize yourself from your non-self. It also helps us it relates to things like self-worth and acceptance. So once again, safety energy lock number 13, which is on either side of the thymus gland, is love thy enemies. It's got to do with regeneration, with love, with restoring our being. So this area is the core essence of who we are energetically. And this is where our heart is. And core, as I said that, the Latin word for heart is cuore. It's the core of who we actually are. So energetically, that is some of all the stuff that your heart does. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in Chinese medicine, the heart is the seat of the Shen. And the Shen is essentially your spirit. It governs your consciousness. It governs your mental and emotional function. It governs awareness. It governs the radiance of life, your ability and your capacity to connect with yourself and others. So Chinese medicine, this is a different philosophy. The chakras are from Hinduism, right? So and Jin Shin Jitsu is from the Japanese origin. So this is how these three areas are melded. They're all saying the same thing. They're just using different languages and different sort of expressions of it, right? And so when the Shen is strong, our eyes are bright, you can see the brightness of eyes, the clearness of the skin. You can feel the vitality of someone. It's where someone's vitality exudes from a healthy Shen. And what ends up happening when our Shen is healthy is we have emotional stability. We have good memory, because it actually affects our brain function. We have good sleep, and we have a general sense of being at home in ourselves, which I said earlier. So I just want to digress a little bit. So something like dementia, we think that it's a disease of the brain. But if you don't feel at home in yourself, if you feel like the world is a hostile place, if you feel like you've been excessively controlled, I've said this before with dementia, and you are longing to express who you are, but you're too frightened to do that in a really authentic way, then one of the ways you do that is you unconsciously, of course no one does this consciously, we develop dementia, because when our heart's desires are not being met, our brains cannot function with clarity. So our good sleep, clarity of mind, memory, is to a large extent governed and controlled by the health of the Shen, which is housed in the heart. So when the Shen is disturbed, then we become anxious, we get insomnia, we get restless, we can have panic attacks, we can have depression, we can have a lack of motivation or inspiration, we can become confused, our memory can become confused, we lack clarity, we become emotionally unstable, we disconnect from ourselves, and we disconnect from others. So in Chinese medicine also, remember, there's a cycle in Chinese medicine where the organs nourish one another. The liver nourishes the energy of the heart. So I started off by saying a lot of heart disease is related to lifestyle. So your liver helps you to detoxify toxins, environmental toxins, chemicals, the chemicals in your food, the chemicals in the medication that we take, right? The chemicals in the body products that we use, and the cosmetics and the personal hygiene stuff that we use, right? The stuff we clean our houses with. Those toxins are all detoxified via your liver. And your liver regulates your metabolism of fats through bile. And in fact, your liver makes cholesterol. So in Chinese medicine, the health of the liver organ function energy nourishes the heart. So, and the stomach and spleen, your digestive system, that digestive axis, if that's not working well, it stresses the heart. So the heart is caught between, it's in the triangle. You've got the heart imagine you've got the liver on the left. This is my left. I'm so bad with left and right. On the left, you've got the heart in the center, top part of the triangle, and you've got the spleen and stomach on the right-hand side of the triangle. So when the liver isn't sending enough energy to the heart, it weakens it because the liver is under pressure because of toxins, for example. And if the digestion is overloaded, and remember, the stomach is the thinking organ. It's associated with thinking and the mind. And the pancreas and the spleen is associated with the emotions. If we're not able to process our thoughts and our feelings, we're not able to digest life effectively. We can't digest our food. It places pressure on the heart. And classically, heart attacks are mimicked by severe indigestion. There are countless stories of people who went to the emergency room because they thought they were having a heart attack, when in actual fact they had terrible indigestion and heartburn, reflux, because of a heavy meal or high stress and heavy meals. So thinking, and how do we think? How are we able to metabolize the world through our thoughts? How are we processing life through our emotions will affect our heart. What do we believe to be true about ourselves? How much do we trust ourselves and the world? Those are all aspects associated with the liver and gallbladder. And if they are not healthy, then we can't nourish the heart. So the heart isn't nourished, and it's also being stressed on the other side. So I've said this also countless times, but all the limiting beliefs we have about ourselves and our safety in the world, they're housed in the liver organ function energy. So you can see how that's going to impact on your ability to express joy. And this is one of the reasons why it is so important that I know it sounds like, I am the choir, right? And I'm saying it's so important that you do the work about finding out what are your unconscious beliefs. What do you believe about the world? What is the story you've been telling yourself for decades? Not because you're delusional, but because you needed to do that to survive. What are the strategies that you've had to put into your life so that you could survive? And are they necessary now? What was necessary for survival in those first 7 years of your life is not necessarily necessary for survival right now. And the more you uncover this is not so that you can go like, oh my goodness, my life is a disaster. It's not. It's so that you can see the complete picture. So remember, I said, this chakra, when it's open, it helps you to see the beauty. It helps you to have compassion for yourself and others. It helps you to see everything and be able to metabolize that clearly. So this is very important in terms of these energetics. Now, there's another energy component, and that's the relationship between the kidney organ function energy and the heart, because each one of these organs, they're connected to elements, and the heart element is fire. So think about fire. It's how we transform things. We can transmute things with fire. We can cook, you take food and you cook it, it changes, right? Things that are completely undigestible when they are raw become like a bean, for example, like a legume. You can't eat raw legumes. But if you put fire underneath the legume with enough water, you can cook it and then it becomes digestible for some, not for everyone, but it becomes more digestible. So fire is a transmuting agent. The kidney and bladder, they are governed and controlled by the water element. And water and fire are the two most diametrically opposed elements in the 5-element theory. And so what they say in Chinese medicine is if there's too much fire, it burns the water of the kidney out. And if there's too much water in the kidney, it swallows the fire of the heart. And the emotion of the kidney is fear. So all that survival fear, those unconscious fears that are housed in the liver, but the emotion is experienced energetically in your kidney, you've got this constant battle energetically between fire, what is my heart's desire, and how do I want to express myself, this outpouring of limitless life power, and holding myself back because I need to survive. And it doesn't make survival bad, please. It doesn't, because without having, if you look at those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't have your basic needs for survival met, like, you don't have enough food and you don't have enough shelter, and, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be outpouring your limitless life power. It's so important again that we need both. Sometimes you need water because if the fire gets out of control, you need to put some of that fire out. Sometimes you need fire because you need that water to be a little bit less sluggish and you want to give it a bit more vuma. And so it's this constant tussle and awareness between this is what my fears are and this is what my heart's desire is. And being able to pursue your heart's desire while having compassion for your fears that hold you back. That's how we do the dance of the balance between the water and the fire. So this is really important, all right? And just to circle back to the lifestyle so that you don't think this is not physical, the more digestible, the more your diet is suited to your capacity to digest. Okay, so first of all, the more you can digest the world cerebrally through your thoughts, and the more you can process your emotions by feeling them, the easier digesting your food is going to be. But that still doesn't mean that everyone can just eat anything. So some foods are better suited to some people. And this is why it's so important that we hone this intuitive function so that we can actually design our own perfect diet, all right? And this is also why what we eat matters in terms of how we can express ourselves in the world. This sounds so obvious, but quite frankly, if you have limited life power because you have lots of disease labels, it's going to be it's going to be difficult for you to engage fully with life, just in terms of what you're physically going to be capable of doing. Okay, so I'm not chucking the physical out out of the bath. I'm mixing my metaphors. I'm not saying I'm trying to actually say that the physical this is how the physical affects the energetic. If your food is pesticide laden, if you live in an area where crops are sprayed all the time, if you don't pay any attention to the chemicals in your environment, if you don't limit your environmental chemical exposure as much as you can, as much as you're capable of, if you don't support your detoxification function, then that's going to compromise that liver and stomach and pancreas, and that's going to have an effect on your heart. So we know that diet and exercise are related to heart disease, okay? But you can be eating the most optimal diet. You could be living in pristine air quality, using only organic products, moving your body, blah, blah, doing all the right things. You can still get heart disease because of all these other factors that contribute to it, right? So this is not so that anyone can feel bad about themselves and their lifestyle. Please, not at all, okay? None of us are perfect. It's information. And we have free will, and what we do with that information is up to us. It's our choice. So this is not about you hating on yourself, right? This is about understanding how this all fits together so that you can marvel at the miracle, actually, that you are. Because honestly, the creation is an absolute bloody miracle, and you are part of that. So I hope that that's actually the message that comes through in what I'm trying to tell you today. Now, energetically, I also need to speak about something called your heart field. So we know from science that whenever there's electromagnetic activity, whenever we have electrons moving, there's an electromagnetic field set up around whatever it is where the electrons moving, right? And so because we've got cajillions of electrons moving around in our bodies, we have electromagnetic fields. And the heart has a field. It has an energy field called the heart field. The brain has an energy field called the brain field. Now, this is what is so important, is that the strongest electromagnetic organ in your body is actually your heart. No matter how busy your mind is, no matter how clever you are, it's actually not your mind, it's actually your heart. And the heart field and the energy that it emits is measurable, okay, it's measurable several feet away from the body. So your heart field is this electromagnetic field that is set up by the functioning of your physical heart and the energy around your physical heart that impacts beyond your physical body. It is 60 times, it's electrically 60 times stronger and up to 100 times stronger magnetically than the brain's electromagnetic field. And the heart and the brain are constantly communicating with one another through the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is really big these days because it's important. And in actual fact, the vagus nerve actually sends a branch to your digestive system also. So your digestive system and your heart and your brain, now physiologically, remember that triangle? You got your liver and you got your spleen and pancreas, digestive system, and your heart, they're connected, right? And your brain is also part of that. So they are connected. And so the heart isn't just pumping blood. but it's broadcasting information to the rest of the body and into the space around it, which is why the heart's essence is radiance. How radiant are you? That depends. That will determine how much energy you radiate and what the quality is of what you radiate around. You can have loads of heart energy and you could be radiating not great. Or you could have loads of heart energy and you can be radiating, I don't know, better. So this is important. It's an important thing to note. And when we are truly connecting to one another, we're connecting through our heart fields. When we're doing these alternate monologues, we're speaking only with the mind. When we're doing a dialogue, we're connecting through the heart. So our heart field affects our emotional state and affects the emotional state of others. And it contributes to something called coherence, right? So there's this institute called the Heart Math Institute. They're all about heart coherence, if you're interested in that. And if it's in it can be energetically, the heart field itself can be energetically damaged through trauma or environmental stress or toxins, can actually damage this field. So there's a lot going on energetically around your heart, guys. So I'm going to finish off by just speaking about what the psychosomatic conditions are that can underline some of the most common heart conditions, all right? And so I'm going to speak about high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes, because they're the most common ones. So energetically or psychosomatically, and I've said this now before, it's connected to deep emotional patterns. And the kidney controls the heart, remember, energy, and the kidney emotion is fear. And your heart essentially controls your dreams. Like, what is it that you would love? Your heart's desires, right? And so when the kidney energy destabilizes the heart energy, that's when we start getting the rage and the anxiety. But we still experience those emotions through this heart center. So that's how connected they are. So let's talk about high blood pressure, because honestly, this is ubiquitous, right? And it is very much there seems to be a general kind of feeling that this is just one of those things that's inevitable as you get older. You know, your blood vessels are not as elastic, and your heart function is not as great, and so you have high blood pressure. So physiologically, high blood pressure is caused by either a narrowing of the arteries or an increase in rapidity of your heartbeat. Because if you've got a narrow pipe and you've got a high pressure, like you've got heavy, it's pumping heavily, it's going to have high blood pressure, right? The pressure is essentially, it's that pressure that's happening in your arteries. So that's physiologically what we think of. And I have to mention this. There's a system in your kidney. Now we're talking about physiology, just medicine now, right? Your kidney produces a substances called renin and angiotensin, and renin and angiotensin determine the contractility or the contraction or dilation of your blood vessels. So your blood pressure, one of the factors that affects your blood pressure is how constricted or relaxed is your blood pressure, your blood vessels, and that's controlled physiologically through the renin-angiotensin system, which is in your kidney. Can you see how I don't know how the Chinese knew this. I mean, honestly, I don't know how they knew this when they developed the system of medicine, but physiology supports the truth of this. So when we have high blood pressure, and so please also just remember, this is a very generalized, okay? This might not all, if you've got high blood pressure, this might not directly correlate, it might not resonate. We are humans. We all have unique patterns. We can't do like painting by numbers, right? But this is an attempt to just give you an idea of what the sort of the themes are around these conditions. So with high blood pressure, and I have come from a family where both my parents had strokes and they both had high blood pressure. And I developed high blood pressure when I was about 19 years old. I went on the oral contraceptive, not knowing that genetically I don't process those hormones. And what happened is my blood pressure shot up. And when I was pregnant, I also had raised blood pressure. And so for a long time, and for periods in my life, I've had high blood pressure. And honestly, what I'm going to tell you here really applied to me unconsciously. I didn't realize it at the time, right? But unconsciously it did. So when you've got high blood pressure, it's generally because you tend to feel powerless in your circumstances. And the powerlessness. Now, when I say powerless, this can be because you're overtly being controlled. But you know what? If you believe that in order to be accepted, you've got to be good, right? So one of my limiting beliefs is I'm not good enough. So in order for me to be accepted, I need to be an exceptional student. I have to be a good daughter, I have to be a good human, a good person, okay? when that is my mental circumstances imposing these controls on me. I have to be nice. I can't be mean. I have a very strong energy. You may have picked that up, all right? Which is not necessarily a good or bad thing. But when I was little, I had the perception that I was told that I was too much. I'm like too extra. You're too loud. You're too enthusiastic. You're too energetic. Like you're just too much, all right? And so I needed to control my too muchness. I realize this now in retrospect. I didn't know it at the time. And what happens is when you have to control yourself because of the circumstances, because you feel powerless in your circumstances, because if you don't do that, you're going to be rejected. Then what you end up with is suppressed anger and rage. And you also end up with a difficulty in expressing your boundaries. Because, if like as girls, very often we were, girls had to be nice, right? Or you have to respect authority. That's another thing. If the person is an authority figure and they're older than you, it doesn't really matter what they do to you. You've still got to be polite. You can't just say, well, screw you. I'm not doing that, because then you're going to get into trouble, right? Okay. So what it does is it results in underlying rage and aggression. And this affects your liver and gallbladder organ function energy. And this compromises your kidney, and up goes your blood pressure. Okay. So what ends up happening is, because another factor, and this was also one of mine, is we then start fearing being out of control, because there's all these rules that we have to stick to. So if we start breaking the rules, then we're not going to be in control. And this needing to be in control, another one of my limiting beliefs, this is a core limiting belief that many of us have, is we need to control ourselves other than the world. I have to control myself. I can't be too loud. I can't swear too much. I can't be too opinionated. I can't be too tough. I can't even be too clever, because even that can be intimidating. Okay. So like you just can't be too, right? So that need to control yourself and the world imposes, can you see how much pressure you put yourself under? Literally putting yourself under pressure in this way. So I can definitely relate to that. All of those things were 100% active within me. And so this is also why things like meditation or stillness or time in nature or relaxation exercises or somatic practices, anything that actually dials things down, okay, but can in the short term or for a short space of time improve it. But unless you actually go and uncover all these rules and regulations that you think you need to live under, because all those things worked for me for a period of time until they didn't work. So it's important. It's important that we go and uncover this stuff. Okay, so you get the idea, right? So it's either because you feel powerless or because you feel you need to, and because of the powerlessness, you have the rage, and because you have the rage, you need to control it. You can't let anyone know. You're not allowed to rage against your circumstances. You have to be grateful and keep 1,000 gratitude journals and all that stuff that we have to do, right? That can cause high blood pressure. Heart attacks? Heart attacks are about about the hustle. And your heart literally, stops because there's not enough blood going to it. That's actually what happens when you have a heart attack. Essentially, blood doesn't get to your heart any longer. And because there's no blood in your heart actually cannot carry on beating. So people who end up having heart attacks are very often people who are very dutiful and so in families, it's very often the breadwinner. So heart attacks are more common in men than women, up until women start going postmenopausally. Then the risks become almost equal. But more men tend to die of heart attacks than women do before 65. And generally, and I'm generalizing now, men are the providers and the protectors. And so this is the same for women. If you're the provider and the protector, but you feel that you are constantly giving, you're not being validated, you're not being appreciated, and there's no way you can ever break the cycle. That's very often how the setup happens towards a heart attack. It's about feeling as if it's not being reciprocated. It's about feeling like your relationships are transactional. They only love me because of what I can do for them. Now, this is not just with money. It can be like, I'm the person who earns the money and, my family don't appreciate it. But it can be I'm the person who cooks the food and who is the emotional support and does all these things, and it's not being reciprocated. I am not getting it in return. And it's this view that everyone around me views me as only being worth something when I'm doing something for them. And a lot of us have this. A lot of us have this. My worth rests in what it is that I can do for others, right? So it creates conflict. Or when we're challenged, when we are never able to provide enough, when you're not your partner challenges you and says you're not making enough money. That would be a very obvious one. Or you think you've made enough provision for your retirement, for example. Let's just say that this is a classic, like you're the man, right? And so, your wife was the homemaker and you were the breadwinner, and you made provision for the retirement, and then you invested the money into something, and then the investment bombed, and then you lost all the money. And then, so first of all, it's the horror yourself and the fear of how am I going to survive? And then when you've got someone constantly going, yeah, but you messed up. It's your fault that we're in this mess. When you're being, or when your authority is being challenged, if you were just more of whatever, then we wouldn't be in this position. It eventually results in hopelessness and helplessness. And honestly, then the only way to get out of that situation is to clock out. And that's usually very sudden. And that's how heart attacks tend to happen. All right. Let me just make sure I haven't left anything out. It can also happen if you feel like you're drowning in obligations, right? If you've got so many obligations and you're drowning, you can't get out of it. The only way you can get out of this is literally not to be here. And one of the ways that is facilitated is by having a heart attack. Either a heart attack that's fatal, or, many heart attacks are not fatal, okay? So it's not always. But if you have a heart attack, you want to ask yourself, where am I? Do I feel like I'm drowning? What is the health of my relationships like? Does it feel transactional? Does it feel like it's impossible for me to ever get what I want because I'm so busy providing what everyone else wants? That's the heart attack. It can also be linked to adrenal burnout, so excessive stress, obviously, and a lack of purpose, not feeling as if our life actually does have value. The only reason why I'm here is, I don't know, I'm just taking up space. It all depends on this, and this is so important in terms of what do you do? What is the next step for you in those older years? Because most people have heart attacks when they're older than 65, post-retirement age. What is the value that you still bring to the world? Because if you feel like there's no value, well, then there's no point in being here. This is all unconscious. No one does this consciously, please remember. No one gives themselves high blood pressure. No one gives themselves a heart attack, and no one gives themselves a stroke, right? So stroke is the last one I want to speak about. Stroke is a really interesting one because stroke is very much about wanting to be loved, but at the same time, having an unconscious fear of being loved, because love can imply pain. It can imply, if I am, so first of all, it's really often based on the limiting belief of I'm unworthy. So in other words, when you have a very strong I'm unworthy limiting belief, the truth is at the base of all the limiting beliefs is that I'm actually not worth being alive. I'm so unworthy that I shouldn't be living. Okay, so if I'm unworthy is one of your primary limiting beliefs, and remember, this is the most common one. We've all got this one in some form or another, all right? Then you desperately want love, but you can feel like you don't deserve love. And this is quite common in people who have had childhood trauma where love was associated with pain. And the most common, the most obvious one I can think of, because I actually have a client that this happened, is when there's some sort of sexual abuse. Because what ends up happening, particularly if you're very young, and particularly if it was by a family member, because part of the rationale of the adult is, I'm only doing this because I love you so much, because you're so lovely. Okay. And so that love starts becoming associated with huge physical and emotional risk. So that's the most extreme version, okay? And so even when if that's your belief that you are unworthy, even if you are loved, it's almost like the being loved, it amplifies the unworthiness, if that makes sense. And that makes your blood vessels fragile. Think about it, it's fragility. I've unconsciously, if I love, I become more fragile. So if someone really loves me and I really reciprocate that love, it's almost like waiting for this to be taken away. So I can't engage with this fully because the pain when I lose it is just going to reinforce that I actually didn't deserve it in the first place. Hope that makes some sort of sense, right? And so that's very often the underlying psychosomatic pattern that's going on there. It's also associated with control. Like if I love you too much, then I'm giving you control because now you have the power to hurt me. So it's better to keep some of that love in reserve, right? And so it's like we're hedging our bets because the love is associated somewhere. There's an association between love and pain or love and fear. It's not safe to love. And so again, as we get older, if we've been in relationships, if we've been in partner bonds, and if I had $100 for every woman over 60 who told me that the only reason why she was married is because getting divorced would be too complicated, and having to listen to how people actually really dislike the person that they're living with. I started practicing when I was 24. So between 24 and when I got to middle age, I heard these stories 100 times, right? More than 100 times. Imagine that. When that dynamic becomes, when you start losing your use. You see, when relationships are transactional and you're now no longer the person who's earning the money, or you're no longer the person who can, I don't know, clean the house, or you're no longer the person that can provide the emotional need, or whatever it is, right? When you are incapable of doing that anymore, when you are not able to keep up your side of the transaction and you think the whole relationship rests on the transaction, which many do, then the relationship implodes. And then you get, what it does is it actually validates what you believe. It's not safe to love because there's only pain at the other side of it. And that creates that fragility. And in your body, it shows up in the fragility in your blood vessels. And so you have a blood vessel burst, it's associated with a rise in pressure, or you have a blood clot that happens. That's very often from the rage, because blood clotting is controlled by your liver function. So you have a massive blood clot that blocks one of the blood vessels into your brain. Most commonly, it's the bursting. The strokes that are caused by blood clots, the recovery is much better. And usually the prognosis for that kind of stroke is much better. If you have a burst vessel and you have a hemorrhage on your brain, those outcomes are usually much worse. So that was very long, but the heart is really important energetically. And I hope that that's given you some idea of how the physical and the mental and emotional and the energetic all weave together. And that the more we focus on this holistic view of our health, and we stop looking at our body as it's just a pump, or it's just a neurological organ, or it's just your stomach's just a pouch that accepts food. The more we can actually, the more power we have to create the health and the life that we would love, our true heart's desire. So yes. That's it.
Thank you, Loretta. That was a lot, and it's a lot to take in, assimilate, but just to reiterate what you said, what we bring on this podcast, and Loretta does it in the most astounding way, is knowledge and education from a very wide, holistic, and different perspective. I know this is out there. You're well trained in it. Some people know this stuff. But honestly, it's pretty much a revolution, in inverted commas, in medicine, in self-help, and a lot of science is showing all of this now. But you're one of the few people I know who can bring this together in an incredibly holistic way. So as a person who's had, and I've talked about it, in utero trauma is another thing, is very, very overlooked because people pass it over because we weren't born yet. So an in utero trauma or an abandonment trauma or the sexual trauma as a child, I think impact this not feeling safe in life, and all of everything you said I can resonate with on one or other level. So to also just reiterate what Loretta said, is if you're a person who knows you've had trauma or you recognize some of the stuff in you, it's definitely not about self-judgment, and it can elicit fear. Okay, it can also go, oh my God, I'm screwed now because I've had that abandonment wound. I know that I don't feel safe in relationships. So the thing is, I need to reiterate, because I've had a long 8-year journey now. Well, it feels long but magnificent, of looking at the trauma, of working with integrating the mind, body, and spirit, because my physical body keeps on bringing me to, okay, it screams at me. So I'm like, okay, what's this about? And I've been on a journey with all of it for 8 years, the mind, body, spirit, soul, emotions. But Loretta has brought, I didn't know Loretta until a few years ago. So I was piecing together stuff from psychoneuroimmunology and neuropsychology and trauma science and brain science. And I think I've done a pretty good job. But I'm saying all of this and sharing my own story, which can feel very vulnerable, because the stuff that's going on in the world, okay, let's look at the whole picture here, is we're in trouble globally now in 2025. And that part where you said, the transactional relationships, the need, the power. The thing is, we've got very lost from the true power, the quality of real relationships, and the world needs to, I've got goosebumps now, we need to be brought back to ourselves and to our hearts. But we cannot do that through going, the opposite of fear is love, because that just doesn't work. We talk about that all the time. So one of the things that's also going out there, which is seemingly to heal this transactional power, awful stuff that's going on in the world, is this kind of bypassing, which has value in its information. There's value in meditating. There's value in doing gratitude. There's value in saying, let me be in my heart, not in fear. But if we do not do this inner work, the psychological work, the emotional work, everything actually can become worse. I can speak to that. So all of it goes together. So it's that constant balance and dance and being in the duality and the good and the bad, the shadow and the light, the joy and the extreme anger. I've had to go through all the spectrums Loretta's talked about, and it hasn't always been easy, as I say, but it's been magnificent, because I have the best life and I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been. And so thank you, Loretta. And at some point, I think we need to put together a masterclass with some real tools, because we didn't have time today to talk about tools, but information, good quality knowledge and information, I can tell you from my journey, is the most important starting point. And to see things holistically. Doesn't matter that you've got caught up in information that now seemingly may have not have helped you. It all helps. But now we are leading you to a journey, hopefully, where you can see all of it is of the divine, actually, the good and the bad. And if we change ourselves one person at a time, we can potentially shift what's going on globally. So that's gone to a very quantum level now, but I think it's fundamental truth. So Loretta, it's astounding what you bring. I am seriously privileged to sit here at the other end of this and to facilitate you taking this out. And so I encourage all of you to please share this, particularly this episode. I think Loretta's brought together so much here of the body, mind, spirit stuff from a knowledge perspective. So share it. Yes, and watch out. We've got some very exciting stuff coming your way in the next few months. If I can give a little plug for what I'm working on now, and Loretta's very involved, is a community-based platform where Loretta and Simone and Marcia and a few other handpicked, very, very powerful people will be facilitating our journeys. We're all still on the journey, Loretta and I, and all of us. We may be just a few steps ahead. So to connect, to communicate is a very missing link as well, I think, out there in people's health. Because I'm single and so I don't connect a lot. But as you say, I hear so many women that are my age and have been married their whole lives and they're more lonely. I'm not lonely, by the way, but they can be more lonely than a single person because they're sitting in relationships where they don't connect So we want to create a forum where people can connect and share and be guided and so much more. So if you're listening to this in 10 years' time, you're going to go, oh, that thing's already 10 years old. But if you're listening now, in 2025, watch this space. There's something exciting coming. So, Loretta, do you want to wrap us up? Because we're hitting the 1 hour mark.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sitting through an hour of this. And I would urge you to listen to it again, and I would urge you to spend a bit of time just reflecting on what is my heart's desire, because honestly, that's one of the starting points. And yes, you're going to be like, oh yes, but I can't have that, and how am I going to get that, and you don't understand. You know what? Just start off with what is your heart's desire, because as Antoinette says, each one of us, as we heal from within outwards, we contribute to the collective and we do make a difference in the world. It's not selfish. Working on yourself is not selfish. Working on yourself and getting to know who you are changes how you radiate in the world, and that changes the world. So
and it's a one step at a time, one small step at a time. You can't do all of this in one go. And that's why we want to create a platform with some guidance and facilitation. But I also just want to end by saying I would listen to this episode a number of times. I do that with really, really good podcasts when there's so much to glean and so much wisdom that I just want to know it all. I sometimes listen to things 8 times. Some people think I'm crazy, but this is one of those episodes you will never be able to glean and hold on to all of it. So the pancreas one I've now listened to 3 times. Loretta, thank you. And every time I gain a new insight or a new awareness. So don't just scan over this, just listen to it and listen again and listen again. This might be one of the most important hours that you spend your time on. So bless you, Loretta, and thank you to everybody who follows us and listens to us. Please share, please subscribe. Please write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you listen there, it really helps our ratings. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. If you listen there, share it, because really we just have a deep desire to empower many people at this very difficult time in our history. So thank you.
Thank you.